Adverts from the genetic engineering lobby claim genetically engineered crops produce higher yields, but this marketing mantra is a complete hoax. It has been shown that crop yields for GE crops are no higher than normal crops, but farmers must buy more expensive patented genetically engineered seeds each year. This forces them to become dependent on corporate giants. But that's not all. Genetic engineering giants also produce pesticides and herbicides. Genetic engineering is not the answer.
But what is? It is officially springtime in much of the USA, and more people than ever are at least thinking about planting things. While oil prices are driving up the cost of food, there are plenty of reasons to plant seeds, but which and where? There are politics here too, and it is no help turning to the administration, which seems to be sending two very contradictory messages about food. We have as our guide, eminent food writer, now New York Times columnist, Mark Bittman. Mark, welcome back.
Laura.
I feel like calling this segment Eat Grit, but I guess that wouldn't be right. First off, it is spring. Can we just start with your reasons to be happy and thinking about the planting? I mean, I enjoyed all that until I looked around in my apartment and realized, where would I plant anything?
That's my feeling also. It's so great that more people are gardening, but if you live in Manhattan, it makes it tough. But, well, that's something to feel good about, is that more people are gardening. There are more farmers markets than ever before, and more opening every year, and more of them are taking food stamps, which is a great thing if you're one of the 45 million Americans who are now dependent on food stamps. So there are sort of a host of good things. You mentioned the administration, and in a way, it's the feminine side of the administration that we can feel good about. That is Michelle Obama, who's not officially in the administration, who has to be fighting with her husband all the time about food, or he's just signed off on it, which is what I suspect.
Well, explain what you mean, because if you start talking about seeds, there is a huge quagmire you get into around genetically modified food, genetically modified seed, organics, hybrids. I mean, take it away, but I read, you're right, what Michelle is teaching, organic, 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 and then look at some of the recent decisions by the USDA approving genetically modified alfalfa, Roundup-ready seed from Monsanto. There's a lawsuit now trying to stop that going ahead.
Well, let's try to take this in order. You have some at least tacit approval of Michelle Obama's actions by the administration. She's encouraging people not only to exercise, but to eat good food, to grow organic gardens, and so on down the line. Meanwhile, the USDA decisions to say that
Roundup Ready
alfalfa is okay, which is going to cross-pollinate with normal alfalfa, and essentially it's the beginning of the end of the term organic. This is really bad. And we're also on the verge, we think, of seeing approval of genetically modified salmon, which is the closest thing we've come to a frankenfish so far, and probably the scariest, in my mind, probably the scariest approval of any genetically modified organism. But it's the death of organic that's really got a lot of people angry, because once you introduce alfalfa, which pollinates by the wind, you can't really guarantee that any alfalfa does not have genetically modified seed in it. And alfalfa goes into, of course, alfalfa is used, a lot of it is used as hay. Hay is used to feed cows. There goes organic milk. There goes a lot of organic meat. So this is really kind of a struggle that's maybe the beginning of the end of organic, or maybe the beginning of a redefinition of organic.
Is it as simple as Monsanto-funded politicians pressuring the USDA and Tom Vilsack? What's behind this? What's the process?
Well, I don't, I'm going to try to spend some Washington and see how this lobbying stuff works, because I don't really know. I don't know that direct payments are necessary. I think that there are people who honestly or dishonestly believe that genetically modified engineering, genetically modified organism, genetic engineering, is the wave of the future, is the way to look for the new green revolution. And I think they're wrong, but that doesn't mean that they think they're wrong. They may be taking payments, they may have cousins on the board of directors, or maybe any number of things, but That's the way things are going.
there are a lot of people that say the world population is going up by 2 billion by 2050, and we need to feed more people more quickly, more effectively.
Well, the argument about that is that you can say, well, we need to produce more food, in which case we need higher production, in which case we need more industrial agriculture, or there's two other ways of looking at it. You need to help people be more self-sufficient, which the UN and many other people, believable people, say they can do much more readily using what was called until recently organic agriculture or sustainable agriculture than they ever will with industrial agriculture. But the other thing we can do is take a look at supply instead of demand. Is there enough food? Well, actually, there is. If you look at the calculus between 1 billion overweight people in the world and 1 billion hungry people in the world, it's just a question of distribution and supply. It's not really so much a question of we need more. It's a question of we need to get food into the hands of the people who need to eat it. There are also people who say we waste 50% of the food we produce, at least in this country, which is a hell of a lot. And we feed 50% of the grain we produce in this country to animals, which that grain alone is enough to feed 1 billion people. So it doesn't have to be quite that complicated, but it's a matter of political will, and there are moral questions. It always boils down to, doesn't it? You must do this every day.
There are a lot of moral questions.
It always boils down to moral questions. Do you see the rest of the world as your brothers and sisters or not?
Let's listen for a moment to this report from Al Jazeera, which speaks to a different aspect of the seed question, and that has to do with seed diversity. You talked already about the threat to organics if GMO alfalfa is spreading with organic grain. When it comes to seed diversity, the whole world has seen a shrinkage of the number of seeds there are, the number of plants there are. And this is a real threat to farmers around the world. Here's a quick clip from Al Jazeera, which tried to address some of this from an Indian point of view.
Seed is the most important input in agriculture. And it is the most precious thing to a farmer. They know how to keep seed, what is good seed, what is bad seed. And now they have been robbed, stolen by these MNCs. Their seeds are not sustainable. Our seeds, farmer seeds, is sustainable. They have sustained for 10,000 years. They would sustain for million years ahead. And the one who is in control of seed, he is in control of agriculture, control of food, control of economy.
They're emphasizing the control question.
Well, that goes back to GMO. I mean, you were talking about diversity, and diversity is a big problem, but one factor or one force in reducing diversity are genetically engineered seeds. And now you have companies like, Monsanto is the most common name, but there are a dozen of them who are patenting, as your first clip said, but I'm not allowed to say that, patenting seeds that they create and not allowing people, you can't breed them, you can't save them from year to year, and we're also reducing the number of seeds that exist. So it's really, especially for third world farmers, it's the worst possible situation.
The Times, where you write, has been hosting a kind of debate around seed banking, because one of the answers to this is, in addition to challenging the corporate control, trying to preserve the diversity by banking seeds. Here's just a glimpse of a seed bank up north. Take a look.
A tremendous amount of the diversity of some of the most important crops in the world is now really safe.
This is a frozen Garden of Eden.
It is really fantastic, but it's cold. So I'm sure the seeds will be quite happy here.
The temperature by the end of this century is very likely to exceed the highest temperature ever recorded at any of those places.
So when you're talking about a 2-degree change in the next 30 or 40 years, you're talking about something that's actually out of bounds from anything they've experienced up to date in history.
Do you think seed banks are over precaution?
Oh, not an over precaution at all. I wonder if it's enough of a precaution. Climate change is definitely at the root of a lot of what's going on. We really have problems here, and the fact that in this country, many people, especially legislators, don't acknowledge that this is happening is really bad for the future.
We'll put a link to the full Seed Warrior film on the show, on the website of the show. I can't let you go without asking you whether you're worried about radioactivity and fallout and food. Apropos of the crisis in Japan, they're measuring radioactivity in rainwater in Massachusetts. Is this going to be a topic of a future column?
I haven't been worried. It does seem like each passing day it gets a little scarier. There's a lot of stuff to be afraid about. I guess we'll find out whether this is really one of them. As of today, I'm not worried.
With respect to what's happening at the Times, I just have to ask you as you're there, we're getting concerned about the Times. Frank Rich leaving, Bob Herbert leaving, the paywall. You want to share any thoughts about any of this? I'm happy to see you on the op-ed page.
Well, there you go. I mean, life is change, as they used to say. And, both Frank and Bob had reasons for leaving, and I'm sure they'll go on to great things. I am a huge fan of both of theirs. There will be new blood. There's me, which I'm happy about. I'm glad you're happy about. Joe Nocera is starting soon, and he's going to be terrific. And as for the paywall, it's not free. I mean, we all cost money. And I think the reception to it has been pretty good, and I'm encouraged by that.
All right. I'm fine with charging for some media. Really am. Thanks for coming in. It's great to have you, Mark.
Great to be here.
Media isn't free. There's a protest happening against Monsanto. Millions against Monsanto, the group, are organizing a day of protest October 16th. Long way off, but we're rolling out with a clip from their call to action. Take a look.
The whole idea behind the campaign is that we want to make GMO labeling mandated by law.
The bottom line is that if we restore consumers' right to know whether their food has been genetically engineered or not, this technology vanishes.
And that's what this campaign is about. And we truly believe that if there were labels telling people what they were eating in their food, that less people would buy genetically modified food and more people would buy organic food. There's a two-strategy approach to this battle against Monsanto in the United States. Because the corporations own the federal government, we can't really expect there to be change there.
Enjoy GRITtv? Want more people to see it? Well, we are making our show available free to public television stations. We need your help to express your opinion. If you'd like to see the show where you live on public television, call your local station and ask for GRITtv with Laura Flanders.